Chris Chandler here in Centralia, Washington, and today we are going to look at the mural entitled The Resurrection of Wesley Everest. It is painted atop the second floor of the Antiques Mall here in Centralia, and it depicts an important incident in American labor history. We'll get to more of that in a second, but for now, let's take a look. Wesley Everest was found beaten and then hung and even shot atop a bridge over the Chehalis River on the outskirts of town as a warning to the IWW, do not organize workers in this town. He is pictured half in logging clothes, half in military garb to show his experience in both fields. The incident occurred on the one-year anniversary of the end of the First World War, November the 11th, 1919. The Bolshevik Revolution was still in full swing and was striking fear throughout the country. The raid on the recruiting hall transpired under the camouflage of an American Legion parade. Today, ironically, the mural is across the street from the Doughboy Monument in the center of the city's downtown park. The Hall of the Industrial Workers of the World, or Wobblies, is depicted here. The Wobblies guarded their hall on the day of the massacre, expecting an ambush from the local townsfolk. It happened a year earlier. Their original hall was burned to the ground during a Red Cross parade. The OBU at the top of the building stands for One Big Union. In the background of the hall, you can see a small picture of Karl Marx. Old Man Lassiter was a partially blind newsstand owner who would sell socialist newspapers. He was run out of town in 1918, shortly before the first attempt to run the Wobblies out of town. The mural was painted in 1997 by Mike Aylwitz, who wanted the concepts to be applicable to modern history, which is why the Spanish words appear in the painting. He said the struggle of labor in Centralia continues today with Latino workers and did not stop with the industrial workers of the world and students of history. This is why there are two stumps. The I Will Win banner, a reference to the IWW workers who lived in log cabins, is juxtaposed with a stump on the other side of the mural, which shows a trailer with a banner, Si Si Puede, roughly translated to mean the same. The artist said he was struck by the poor conditions endured by immigrant workers in Centralia, and the two stumps are a then and now approach to local labor. Back up at the top, the pie in the sky and the angel protesters. The pie in the sky is a reference to a satire song by slain Wobbly folk singer Joe Hill. He coined the pie in the sky phrase that appeared in his song, The Preacher and the Slave, a parody of the well-known hymn In the Sweet By and By. Joe Hill cleverly parodied many songs in the repertoire of the Salvation Army Band that would routinely show up at labor demonstrations attempting to drown out the speeches. So Joe Hill parodied the songs and printed the lyrics out so that a chorus of protest singers could join in the band rather than be drowned out by them. Pie in the Sky was a favorite. The dripping wet angels holding the sign are meant to be the wives of the Wobblies who were shot with water from fire hoses when they called for the release of their husbands imprisoned after the massacre. The powers that be figure, described by Aylwitz as an ugly human, is spewing fecal matter from his mouth. The suited man is meant to symbolize the established power in Centralia, including the press, which created hysteria about the Wobbly threat. The fecal matter is turning into a mob of people waving crosses, nooses, and American flags, marching towards the Wobbly Hall over the imprisoned workers in flames of discontent. Some of the mob members have blockheads, which was a term described workers who believed their bosses when they told them hard work would lead to a better way of life. The capitalist pig symbolizes logging company owners, surrounded by piles of timber and bags of money. The pig is being hugged by a blockhead and a pork chopper, a reference to a bureaucratic union boss who doesn't really care for the union members and is lampooned in the Joe Hill song, Mr. Block. Today's corporate greed is depicted here, coal mining. The heavy equipment is meant to show Centralia's strip mining industry, which was still in action until around 2006. The Elks Club. Members of the Centralia Elks Club, which formed alliances with other established groups in town, oppose the Wobblies and are shown here as rats with a noose, a knife, and a gun. Raining black cats. These sabotabbies are the symbol for sabotage, which the Wobblies regularly use to disrupt capitalist enterprises, and can also be seen in the local museum in Centralia, which I was unable to go to today because it is closed. The steam plant. The smoking plant is a tribute to the TransAlta Mining Company, which runs a coal-burning plant in North Centralia, and donated the money to get this mural painted. To recap, The IWW was trying to recruit timber, mining, and dock workers in the area. However, fears of the Bolshevik Revolution spreading to the United States had led to a clampdown on organized labor. The mistake the Wobblies made was firing first. But who could really blame them? It was self-defense. A year earlier, their original recruiting hall had been burned under the camouflage of a Red Cross parade. This time, it was under the camouflage of an American Legion Armistice Day parade. The parade of armed marchers suddenly changed course and headed straight for the recruitment building. The Wobblies, in an effort to defend themselves, fired on the mob, and 7 were left slain. Federal troops were mobilized and arrested the Union men. One attempted to flee, Wesley Everest, who's depicted here in this mural. He was caught and jailed. However, under the cover of night, a mob busted him out of jail, beat, hung, and even shot him. The national media, and in particular the FBI, used the incident to oil the wheels of the printing press to depict the IWW as murderous thugs. One of them, who was a young man fresh out of law school, recently hired by the Justice Department. His name, J. Edgar Hoover. Hearing of the massacre, he convinced his boss, Attorney General Mitchell Palmer, that the Wobblies were driving the country into chaos and that they needed to be stopped. With Palmer's approval, Hoover orchestrated raids on the IWW halls across the country. The Palmer raids, as they came to be known, marked the beginning of America's first Red Scare, a roughly 2-year period when the federal government jailed Wobblies and other radical activists. They deported immigrant radicals, and they raided halls and meeting places of several unions, all with the goal of wiping out the working-class radicalism. On one level, they were successful, but in other ways they were not, because the most important contributions the United States has made to the rest of the world have been won by organized labor. The 8-hour day, child labor laws, workplace safety standards, equal pay for people regardless of race, and soon to come, equal pay for women in the workplace. This has been Chris Chandler in Centralia, Washington.